Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We'll just wait a few more minutes. We've still got quite a few people joining as we speak, and then we'll get started. Brett, you're online, are you? I can see you there.
You should be able to hear me now, mate. Can you hear me?
Gotcha, yeah.
Yep, cool.
Excellent. So while we're waiting, if you've got any questions throughout the night, jump in chat. Feel free to pop them in there. I'll keep an eye on that throughout the presentation, and we'll probably get to most of the questions at the end. So feel free to find where the chat is. Inside Zoom, you just normally go up to the top, hit more and hit chat, and you'll be able to chat to everyone there.
There's a few familiar faces here, but there's a few that I don't know as well. So that's good. I'm just stalking all the people right now.
Okay, I think we might get started.
Cool.
Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Really looking forward to tonight. We've got Brett sharing. My name is Andrew from NiSi. I see some familiar faces as well. So I know I've met some of you before, maybe on some workshops or at a NiSi event, but thank you so much for joining us tonight. You will also be able to rewatch tonight if you want to, or send it to a friend. It'll be up on Facebook live, it'll be up on YouTube. I'll send those links out for you tomorrow as well. So I know we've got quite a few people on YouTube watching right now as well as in Zoom here and on Facebook. So before Brett starts, I just wanted to let you know, and I'll just mute everyone there. I just wanted to let you know that we do have a 15% offer just to say thank you for joining tonight. So that's the coupon code there, live 15 Brett. So if there's anything that you wanted to grab, maybe Brett talks about something tonight that's of interest, you can use that coupon code on nisifilters.com.au and grab that 15% off. I'll also email that out to you with a link to the presentation to watch after. Now on to the main event for tonight. So Brett is a wonderful photographer. I'm sure most of you here tonight have seen Brett's work and have just been amazed at some of the shots he's been able to create. And one of the amazing things is Brett, he loves teaching people and he's so great at teaching people, which is fantastic. But he's really explored every single inch of New Zealand. I've been lucky enough to tag along on a workshop and help Brett out. And it is just amazing some of the places he knows. You talk to local people in New Zealand and you talk about the place that Brett's found that's amazing, and most of them wouldn't have even have heard of the place. But I know Brett spends time just in his car, just driving every single inch of the place to find all of these amazing spots. So you're in for a bit of a treat tonight. He's going to share a lot of his knowledge about landscape photography in New Zealand, some of the locations that he visits there. He'll talk about how he's created some of the shots, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. So I'll stop talking and pass it over to Brett.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everyone, for joining in tonight. I've got a bit of a schedule here that I'll run through. So for those people, I'm sure, as Andrew said, there's a few familiar names and faces on the list here that I can see. So I know a lot of you people already, but there's a lot of people here that I don't know as well. So that's really good. I'll just give you a bit of an introduction to who I am and what I'm all about. I'm an Aussie living in Wanaka in New Zealand. I'm sure you know where Wanaka is. There's a tree there in the lake that some people know about. So yeah, I live in Wanaka. Over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been fortunate enough to travel around the world quite a bit doing photography. And I, hand on heart, I honestly believe New Zealand is the best all-round landscape photography location in the world in terms of how compact it is and how much it has to offer, and the quality of the photos that you can actually get here and the variety of the photos that you can get here as well. So that's the reason why I live here now. I moved here about a year ago from Australia. I was doing a lot of photography workshops here over the last 4 or 5 years. I was spending more time in New Zealand than I was in Australia. So, and to be honest, I prefer it here than Australia anyway, because it's not as hot and the scenery's nice. So yeah, I moved here about a year ago to continue on with more workshops. I had a full calendar booked out this year, but I haven't done any of it because of this COVID thing. So it's been a little bit tricky. So essentially what I do business-wise, I'm a full-time professional landscape photographer. My main business is photography workshops or tours, same thing really. And I conduct those workshops generally a lot in New Zealand, of course, but also in Tasmania in Australia, Canada in the Rocky Mountains. This year we also had a new workshop for Africa for wildlife, and also had a new one for a couple of national parks in the USA, the Grand Tetons in Wyoming and Yellowstone National Park. But that hasn't happened this year. But that's the sort of thing I do. But essentially, I guess it's probably fair to say that the majority of my business, or my core business, is my workshops here in New Zealand. And I consider that to be my specialty. As Andrew said, I've spent a lot of time in New Zealand over the last sort of 20 years. And there's not really a road in New Zealand that I don't know about. If there is, I'll find it. So that's pretty much who I am and what I'm about. So tonight I'm just going to have a bit of a talk to everyone about New Zealand as a photography location, and we'll show you a few photos. We'll talk about some of those images, and we'll talk about the seasons, the 4 different seasons of the year, and we'll also talk about regions or areas of New Zealand to visit and to shoot. A little bit about my relationship with NiSi filters. I've known Andrew and the family that own NiSi for quite a few years now. I can't remember how many years, maybe 5 or 6. First got on board with NiSi filters when I started doing workshops a few years ago, and I've always stuck by the brand and stuck by the people. They're an exceptionally good product. I get to see all the different brands of equipment, all the different camera brands, filters, tripods, all that kind of stuff, because everyone brings it on workshops. And I still do really believe that NiSi has the best product out there for ND filters, and worth buying. They definitely can make a difference to your images. And the good thing about the brand is there's a lot of support. You get, there's never an issue. If there's ever any product issues, which there's very, very rarely is, the guys are always happy to help out. And also you get people like Andrew that often a couple of times comes along on workshops and brings lots of toys for all the people to play with. And that's always good fun. People seem to enjoy that. So that's sort of how I got involved with NiSi. I'm a fairly loyal person, so I've stuck by the brand, and I'll continue to do so moving forward. Really what I'm going to just do now is I'm going to share my computer screen here. I'm just going to jump straight in and show you some images. Andrew, you've disabled my screen again, mate. So yeah, I'm just going to jump in and show you some images from New Zealand and just have a little bit of a talk about each image and what's involved in shooting it. Am I right, Andrew?
Just give me a sec. I'm just
Okay.
fixing it. Just try it now.
Yep. We're good. Can you see that? Can everyone see that?
Yep, got it.
Yep. Okay, cool. Okay, so I've just got about a dozen or so images here. So I'm just going to scroll through these images and give you a little bit of a story about each image and the time of the year it was shot and so forth. This image was shot only recently in August this year, and it's a zoom image shot with a zoom lens, a 100 to 400 millimeter lens. I think it was shot at approximately 200 millimeters. It was just a beautiful late winter's morning at the back of a place called Lake Ohau, which is in the Mackenzie region of New Zealand. I was there with a client doing a private workshop, and there's some really stunning images to be had at this particular location, but certainly not this image. This is not the obvious image at this location. As a matter of fact, it's far from the obvious image at this location, because this mountain was in fact a long way away from where we were. But because I'd already got images at the obvious locations, I always like to do things that aren't obvious. And this mountain really stood out to me, particularly with that layer of, and that's actually a layer of fog, not cloud, because you do get both here, you get cloud and fog, but that's actually lifting fog off the lake. And that really appealed to me, that shot. So it's a pretty simplistic image, actually. There's not a lot to it. It's zoomed in at about 200 millimeters. It's using a NiSi landscape circular polarizer, and that's it. There's no other filters used in this image. There was no graduated filter and no ND filter. It was just a circular polarizer. So I quite like that image. Let's go on to the next one. This image was shot in autumn last year, 2019, whilst hosting a workshop, one of the autumn workshops. And to this day, this particular morning or sunrise was probably still one of the top 3 sessions of photography I've ever witnessed. It was just amazing. This morning, the sunrise lasted for about 45 minutes, and the sky changed color. It changed. The fog came in, the fog went, the clouds went from pink to blue to orange. The scene just kept changing and changing and changing for about 45 minutes, and it was just, and the light was just sublime. It was just gorgeous, beautiful light. And this one was, in fact, a long exposure taken with a 6-stop ND filter and also a 4-stop graduated neutral density filter, which is basically used to darken the sky down, because as you can see, the sky was pretty bright. There were some pretty strong highlights there. And if we look over here, the sun there is almost about to break over the top of that mountain there. So I've managed to get this shot just at the right time. When I'm on workshops guiding clients, I actually don't take very many photos, but when a sunrise like this appears, I certainly do. I normally always ask the clients, do you mind if I take a couple of photos? And this morning was just amazing. This is still one of my favorite photos, even though it's a year and a half ago. I still like this photo. It's one of my favorite locations as well. It's in the Mackenzie region of New Zealand South Island, which Mackenzie region is basically right in the middle of the South Island, and it's my favorite area. And this location is just one of my all-time favorite locations. And that image has actually been really popular in my print sales as well. I've sold quite a few prints of that image. This image here is I think it needs no explanation what it is. It's Mount Cook, which is New Zealand's biggest mountain. And to the left is another mountain, which is Mount Tasman. And they're New Zealand's two biggest mountains. This image was taken in winter last year, 2019, again, whilst hosting a workshop with a group of clients. And the image was shot very, very late in the evening, past the blue hour, almost sort of into dark. We were actually, in fact, shooting on the other side of this, to the left of the scene here, there's a river. And we were, in fact, shooting on the other side of the river, which was also a beautiful scene. But as I do, I keep looking for a better shot. And I could see this little backwater pond type thing here on the other side of the river, and it was still, and I knew that it would have a good reflection. But in order to get to it, we had to walk across the river in the middle of winter. And I asked all the clients, does anyone want to walk across the river to the other side? Because I reckon there's a really good photo over there. And everyone was keen. We just walked across the river about thigh deep in the middle of winter, freezing conditions in freezing water. Everyone just walked straight through the river, and we got to this scene and managed to get this shot. And everyone that shot this particular scene that day got great photos. And I actually got a few other images that day as well from here. Also got a really nice pano from this scene as well. So a photo of Mount Cook's very iconic New Zealand, and always worth getting. Another thing about Mount Cook, it's often covered in clouds. Whenever there's a lot of cloud around the top or the peak of the mountain is often covered by cloud. So to get a clear day where you can see the entire mountain like that, you always seize the opportunity when you get a day like that. This image here, again, this was taken in winter. I have to be honest and say I can't remember when I took it. I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before, but it was definitely in winter. And the reason I know that is I can tell by looking at this little jetty in the foreground that it's actually got a lot of ice on it. So it's frozen. And I do remember slipping off it on ice. But I can't remember when this was. I think it might have been the year before last, 2018. Once again, these real crimson pink clouds that you see here, I haven't really done anything like saturating colours. That's the colour the clouds are. And the late autumn, early winter clouds are amazing. That, anywhere from sort of April through till August, really, you tend to get these beautiful crimson pink clouds and these really calm sunrises in the wintertime. So, that was just a fairly simple shot, really. Shot vertically. I do shoot a lot of vertical images, and you'll probably notice this image, which is a little bit different to what I normally do. It's about a 50-50 image. So it's kind of 50% of the image is below the horizon and 50% above the horizon. And I wouldn't ordinarily take a photo like that, but it just suited this scene and this composition. That's at a place called Lake Alexandrina, which is in the, once again, it's in the Mackenzie region in the South Island, and it was in wintertime. The image was taken with a graduated filter on the top to darken the sky down a little bit. It was a 3-stop graduated filter, and that's it. That's the only filter I used. I didn't use a circular polarizer because actually, so I do use a circular polarizer a lot, but what a circular polarizer will actually do is it will often kill the reflection in the water. It will take the reflection away, and sometimes you'll want the reflection, so you don't use a polarizer. So that's why I didn't use a polarizer on that image. This one is another scene that I'm sure lots of people would be familiar with. This is a place called Tasman Lake. Once again, I guess it's one of New Zealand's iconic scenes, really. It's definitely one of my favourite places in New Zealand. As a matter of fact, one of my favourite places in the world. Just a beautiful place. If you look in the middle of the image here, you'll see some sort of blue ice in there, and that is in fact the face of the glacier. So that is the Tasman Glacier, and it looks, all that brown stuff or grey stuff is actually dirt or rocks or gravel that sits on top of the glacier, and that glacier winds up that valley there behind up to that mountain in the distance. The face of that glacier, you can't really tell in this image because it's so far away, but the face of that glacier is very big. It's probably about 30 meters high. And what happens is the ice breaks off this glacier. They call it calving. The glacier calves, so chunks of ice fall off, and then they float down this lake and eventually melt and float down the Tasman River, and eventually float away. I've been to this location lots of times, like I don't know how many times. And I'd never got the perfect conditions. I'd always got good photos, but not what you consider to be, perfect. And this particular morning, everything just came together. We arrived there quite early in the morning before sunrise, and as the sun rose, the sky went pink. The lake was this beautiful turquoise blue color. We also had a few icebergs that put on a show right in front of us. And it was just one of those mornings that everyone in the group on the workshop just got great photos. You didn't have to do much. The light was so good. There was a window of about 10 minutes, maybe not even that, probably 8 minutes of really beautiful light, where everybody managed to get some good images. In terms of filters, once again, I think I had a graduated filter on the sky, like a 3-stop graduated filter, and that's it. No circular polarizer and no ND filter. Tasman Lake, if you're going to New Zealand, it's one place you definitely want to put on the to visit list. This image here is a different image than my normal style of images, I guess. This is actually an aerial photo that's taken out of a helicopter, and it's taken with a zoom lens, and it's called the Godley Valley, and that is the Godley River. So that's a braided river that runs off the Alps, and it runs down into the delta where it runs into Lake Tekapo. I had some clients out last spring, some clients out from Canada, and some private clients, like not on a group workshop, and they wanted to do some aerial photography. So we chartered a helicopter, and we did a flight over the Southern Alps, over the Godley Valley, over the big mountains, over the Tasman Valley, all that region. So it was an amazing morning, and I managed to get this photo out of the helicopter with a 100 to 400 millimeter lens. No filters, of course. If you've ever done aerial photography, you'll know it's actually quite tricky, particularly on this morning because it was very windy and the helicopter was moving around a lot in the wind. And if you're a squirmish person, you wouldn't have liked it, but it was worth it because we got some good images. So when you're shooting out of a helicopter, particularly if the helicopter's moving around a lot, you need a really fast shutter speed. Otherwise you just won't get a clean image. So this was taken, I think it was 1/320th of a second. So it's quite a fast shutter speed. And this image is actually taken at quite a high ISO. Think about ISO 800. So it just shows a lot of people seem really scared of using high ISOs to take landscape photos. But if you've got a good camera, it doesn't worry me. If I need to turn the ISO up a bit higher to get the right shot, I'll certainly do it. Probably took a little bit of a creative side when I edited the photo. The sand on the riverbank's pretty much similar to what it looked like, but I've certainly added a lot of contrast, and I have probably tweaked the color of the water a bit. The water tends to be more towards green than that color there, which is more to a blue. But that was just done by I can't remember what it is. Anyway, just by color channel hue. Is it hue? Anyway, changing the color a bit. So that's also been quite a popular image for me as far as print sales go. And if you can look on the wall behind me, this print's actually on the wall, the same photo. Next photo, I had to throw a lupins photo in the mix. The lupins have just started blooming here in the last 10 days. I went to Queenstown today, actually, and I've seen heaps of lupins, and there's lots of lupins out this year. Not to this state yet, but I'd say within about a week they'll be looking like this. They're probably about half that at the moment, but lots of lupins around this year. I'll go out in the next few days and make a YouTube video about lupins. So if you follow my YouTube channel, keep an eye out for that. And you'll get to see a bit more of lupins. Lupins photography, this is at a place called Lake Tekapo. Everyone probably knows where that is. It's easy to find. It's right in the middle of the Mackenzie Basin. This image is taken quite close to the road. Parked the car, walked down onto the flat near the lake. Not a hard photo to get, quite simple. This image was taken during my lupins photography workshop this time last year. So I think it was this week last year that we were on that workshop. And we just had a beautiful morning on the shores of Lake Tekapo. And this image presented itself. I shot it as a vertical image just to simplify the composition a bit, because on both sides of the frame, there was a little bit of distraction, some rocks and people and so forth. So I shot it as a vertical composition to get rid of those elements and make it more simple. And also vertical composition also will always work really good when you've got a really strong, impactful foreground. So these lupins in the foreground here are very close to the camera. These pink ones here are probably only a couple of feet from the camera lens. So that's why I've shot it in that way. And it is actually a long exposure. If you look at the sky, you'll notice the clouds are a bit wispy and the lake's a bit smooth. I used a 6-stop ND filter. I used a circular polarizer. The reason I used a circular polarizer on this shot was to dull down the highlights on the flowers and the foliage, and also to accentuate the color of the water in the lake, and also to saturate the colors in the foliage and the flowers. I also used a graduated filter on the sky, which was a 3-stop graduated filter, 3-stop neutral, graduated neutral density. So yeah, wasn't that difficult a photo to get, quite simple really. And in terms of editing this photo, once again, I didn't do a lot to get it to look like that. This photo here is actually taken at a place called Fariki Beach. If you've seen the name of the beach written on a piece of paper, you would never pronounce it Fariki, but that's how the Maoris pronounce it. It's spelled W-H-A-R-A-K something, something, something. So this beach is at the very northern tip of the South Island. You can't go any further north of the South Island. There's a peninsula right at the very top near a place called Golden Bay, and there's this absolutely beautiful beach there, and this is it. You've got to walk about 1.5 or 2 kilometers, might even be further, can't remember, to get to the beach. A few kilometers anyway, it's not that far. An absolutely stunning beach, really beautiful dark sand. There's 2 big sea stacks out in the ocean. This composition's totally different to what most people would shoot at this beach, like completely different actually. There's actually 2 sea stacks in that photo. There's the big one in the foreground. You can just see the other one in the back. But if you look up that beach or that location, I doubt you'll see an image shot like this. It's really different. I was just immediately drawn in by these textures in the sand and the grass, and there was a little bit of side light coming in from the right-hand side as the sun was rising. The photo was actually taken quite early in the morning, probably in the blue hour before sunrise, so it was quite early, and it was taken with a 6-stop ND filter. I didn't use any graduated filters on the sky. I didn't need to. Just a 6-stop ND filter. That's the only filter I used on this image. If you like seascape photography, this place is up there with the best seascape locations in the world. I think it's very amazing. And this beach actually faces north. So the beauty of that is that it's side lit from the east and the west. So you can shoot it at sunrise or sunset. It works for both. Great location. It's a bit of an effort to get to, but it's certainly worth it. That is a location that we will be visiting. I'm doing next year a seascapes photography workshop in New Zealand, so just dedicated only to seascapes, and this is one of the locations that we'll be going to.
Hey Brett, you said you took that with a 6-stop. Did you also use a grad, or
No,
was there no light, so no need?
No, didn't use a grad. No, just a 6-stop.
Cool.
Yep. What's happened here? Oh, we've got to go back the other way to get to these other images. We must have started in the middle. Okay. We're going backwards. This image was taken this year in July. This is at a place called Twizel, which is, once again, it's kind of right in the middle of the South Island in what's called Mackenzie region. And you can probably tell by looking at the trees here that they're frozen. So this is actually a thing called hoarfrost, which is a really heavy frost that gets on the trees sometimes in the wintertime. And it's pretty unique. There's only a few places in the world that actually get hoarfrost. And if you can be lucky enough to witness and shoot a hoarfrost, it is quite a spectacle. Those people that have been lucky enough to shoot the hoarfrost don't stop talking about it. So this was in July this year. I watched the weather patterns for several days because you need to get the weather right to get the hoarfrost. There's a few elements that need to come together. And I've been watching the weather for a few days, and I had an inkling that this was going to happen this particular morning. So I got up at 4 a.m. and made the drive to Twizel, and it was certainly worth it. To this day, that particular day was probably still, if not the best, probably the second best day photography I've ever had in my life. It was just absolutely amazing. Everything was covered in hoarfrost. This layer of light fog hung around all day, and there was no wind. The conditions were just incredible. I did last year, actually, one of the groups on one of my winter photography workshops were actually lucky enough to get a hoarfrost during the workshop, and it was amazing. I did actually make a YouTube video the day that I shot this image, and it goes for quite a while. So if you look me up on YouTube, it's well worth watching. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. It was just an amazing day's photography. I got so many good images that day. I've edited about 10 or 12 of them, and I've probably got another 30 or 40 sitting on my hard drive that I haven't even edited yet, like really good ones. So, yep, that was what that was. In terms of what did I shoot it with, I used a polarizer. Circular polarizer. I shot it with a zoom lens. It's actually taken with a 100 to 400 millimeter lens, and it's actually taken at it's quite zoomed in. It's taken at about 300 millimeters. So where I was shooting was quite a way back from here. And the polarizer I've used sort of halfway. So you can spin the polarizer to add a reflection or to remove the reflection, and I've sort of shot it somewhere in the middle. So I've got sort of half a reflection, but I've also accentuated the color in the water, and that is the color of the water. If you haven't been there, that's what the water looks like. No graduated filter. There's no point. The sky was obviously fog, and when I edited this photo, I actually made the sky brighter, not darker, because there's no texture in the sky. So there's no point in trying to add a sky or add darkness when it's not there. This image was also taken the same day. As I say, it was just an amazing day's photography. And this was taken not at the same location as that last image, but sort of fairly close by. And once again, you can see the white frost on all the trees. This image is one of my own personal favorite images I've ever taken. I just love it. I just like everything about it. And it's funny, as a photographer, sometimes I always try and tell people, shoot on your instincts. Don't take any notice of anything, but just shoot on your own instincts. And my instincts really drew me in to take this photo. I seen this scene down the back here, these trees at the back with a little bit of light. The sun was coming from the left-hand side. The sun was just gently breaking through some clouds and just casting some light in the middle area there. And I've seen it from quite a distance, probably 800 meters away, and I was drawn into it. And I just knew, sometimes you just know when you're going to get a good photo, and I just knew that this was going to be a really good photo. Once again, I've sold quite a few prints of this image. It's been quite popular. Quite a few people have got this hanging on their wall. And if I was going to put another print up in my house, this would be the next one for sure. This photo was taken with no filters at all. None, not even a polarizer. It was taken with a 24-70 Canon lens, and it was a pretty simple shot. I think it was f11 aperture, and whatever the shutter speed was, it was still taken off a tripod, obviously. And that's it. Quite a simple shot. When you get perfect light and perfect conditions like that, the photography can be actually quite easy. This image was also taken the same day. This one was taken in the blue hour, so quite early in the morning. As you can see, there's still quite a tinge of blue in the image. I've actually desaturated the blue in this image. Pardon me. I've actually taken blue out of it because it was quite a blue scene. This was the first image I took the morning that I arrived that day. And this image was actually taken almost in the dark. I've actually upped the exposure a bit in editing, but it was very early in the morning in the blue hour, and the scene, I just got out of my car and walked to the edge of this little pond, and this scene just jumped out at me immediately, and I had to shoot it. Once again, filters, no filters, just 24-70 lens, no polarizer. Exposure time on this was a few seconds. I think it was about 10 or 15 seconds because it was still quite dark. And I actually had to turn my ISO up a bit as well to get the shutter speed down a bit more. Otherwise it would have been, like a minute long or something like that. Just a beautiful, soft, gentle scene. And the thing that I like about it, well, I like the composition. I like how it's quite sharp on this big tree in the middle. And as it makes its way towards the back of the scene, it gets softer. And it's sort of naturally softer because of the fog. So I kind of really like that. And I like these two trees in the middle, which are, I think, willow trees. And the pinky color on them is in the winter, the willow trees get the bark's like an orangey color, and they get these little buds on the trees, which are ultimately what forms the leaves in the springtime. So that was what sort of made that pinky sort of color. And then, of course, you've got that really authentic New Zealand grass, that yellowy gold grass along the bank there, which was also frozen. This image, I'm pretty sure you know where this is. If you don't, I'll explain it. This is Wanaka, right here where I live. This place is only just down the road from where I live. I can actually walk there. The Wanaka tree, it's world famous. It's known all over the world to photographers. It is probably one of the most shot landscapes photos in the world, I think. Those people who are familiar with the tree might notice it's got a limb missing, and if you're looking close here, you'll see where the limb's been cut off. It did have another big branch coming down the bottom here, but that got cut off in autumn this year. This image was taken only not long ago, a few months ago, probably, I'm guessing about August, in the evening at sunset. The sun, as you can see, was just setting over to the left. I just went down the lake that afternoon, as I do most afternoons, just to have a look around, and I just really liked that pink in the clouds. It was a really soft light. There was a layer of clouds across the back there, sort of softening the scene, and the sun star was definitely a bonus. It was just one of those afternoons that came together. One thing I certainly remember about this afternoon, it was very, very cold. I think it was about -5 Celsius at, late in the afternoon. It was quite cold. In terms of filters, I used a 6-stop filter on this one, a 6-stop ND filter, and I used all three on this shot. Actually, I used a circular polarizer as well, and I also used a 4-stop medium graduated filter on the sky. So 3 different filters are used to create this scene. But this image is very close to what it came out of the camera. I've obviously done a few little tweaks in Photoshop, but not a lot. That's quite close to what the scene actually looked like. I think this is the last image. I don't want to show you too many images. This one was taken in autumn this year, and that's taken here in Wanaka as well. Just one afternoon in autumn. I really just decided to jump in the car, grab my camera, and just drive around the Wanaka area, not going more than a few Ks from town, and just drive around the area and just take some photos of the autumn. The reason I did it was because I had a lot of people booked in to come on autumn workshops, and they couldn't come because of this COVID thing. So I thought I'd take some photos of the autumn just to show the people what it can look like. This is a scene that I don't think anyone else has ever shot that I'm aware of, and most people would probably drive straight past. It's right next to the road. It's just a puddle of water, had some nice leaves in it, and I drove past it, and it just really caught my eye. I seen the leaves, and I seen that willow tree reflecting, and I turned around and went back and shot the scene. It's shot with a wide angle lens. That's why the foreground's got so much impact. It's shot really wide at 16 millimeters with a 16 to 35. And I'm really down low, and I'm really close to those leaves. I'm probably about half a meter away from those leaves. It's only a single shot, f/16. So shoot at a higher aperture to try and get a little bit more depth of field. But the tree wasn't that far away, so it's still relatively sharp. Did I use a polarizer? No, I didn't use a polarizer on this image. I don't tend to use a polarizer on a wide angle that often. I did use a graduated filter on the sky, the 4-stop medium grad filter. And if you look to this area on the left here, you'll see the sky is really bright, almost sort of overexposed, if anything. But I quite like that. It sort of gives a good sense of a light source coming in to the image. That's about it for images. I could show you thousands of them, but they're the only ones that I've got to show you tonight. So we'll keep on moving. How do we go back to Zoom? Am I back? Yes. Next thing we'll talk about is the regions in New Zealand. So there's lots of areas in New Zealand where you can shoot. Pretty much, to be honest, anywhere on the South Island of New Zealand is good photography. You could almost hop in a car and drive around the South Island and follow the main roads and still get amazing photos. But it's once you actually start to get off the main roads and into some of the backcountry areas that you really find some stunning scenes. But I'll just talk about the, once again, I'll share my screen, and we'll just talk about the some of the areas in New Zealand that I sort of like the most. Can you see my screen, Andrew? Yep. Okay, there's a couple of maps in New Zealand here. I'm only talking about the South Island here. I don't really shoot on the North Island much. The North Island's nice. It's actually really nice, but the South Island is definitely a lot better. So here's a map of the South Island on the left-hand side. And really, if you just took your pen or your pencil and just draw a big egg shape around that middle area, you went as south as Queenstown and up through the middle here and around where these blue lakes are, just around that area there, pretty much anywhere in that area, Queenstown, Wanaka, and then this area in the middle is called Mackenzie region. There we go. So there's three regions that stand out to me. The number one is this area here called Mackenzie. If you get on a map and look it up, you'll see that area leads up to the Big Alps. It leads up to Mount Cook. It's the one that's got the big glacial lakes. It's got Lake Tekapo, Lake Pukaki, the Twizel region, Lake Ohau, Lake Benmore. That whole region is amazing. It's a world-class photography location. And if you spent 2 weeks in that area and nowhere else, you'd be happy. And then you come down to Central Otago, which is where I am now. Again, a really beautiful area, has that real iconic New Zealand, a lot of that sort of rolling hills and yellow tussock grasses. And then as we go back up into the back part of Otago, which is where I am now, is the Wanaka area, and it backs up into some big mountains, lakes, lots of green, thick, mossy forests, waterfalls, all that kind of stuff. Again, stunning area. And then we go over the mountain range to the Queenstown Lakes district. And once again, it's quite a similar area to Central Otago. Big lakes, big mountains. This line down here, you can probably see my mouse, I hope. This line down through here is the biggest mountains in New Zealand. It's what's called the Southern Alps. And anywhere that backs up onto those mountains gives you great photos because they're big, grand mountains, and they're always, not always, but a lot of the time they're covered in snow, and they make an epic backdrop to any photo scene, really. So pretty much anywhere that backs into those Alps, you'll get good photos. And the Queenstown Lakes district, I'm sure you've heard of Queenstown. That's where the airport is. It's quite a big town, right on the lake, Lake Wakatipu. Beautiful spot. Once again, there's so much stuff to shoot in that area. A good winter area. It's good all year round. But so that for me, that area, those three districts, Mackenzie, Queenstown, Central Otago, that would be my pick of areas to go. There's lots of other parts to see in the South Island, but if you're limited for time and you were coming to New Zealand and you wanted to see the best of it, if you just stayed in that region, you would see the best of it. Honestly, you can go anywhere in the South Island and take good photos, and I mean anywhere. Coastline is stunning. The West Coast has some absolutely beautiful scenes. Just be aware if you're going to the West Coast, it's a long way between locations, so lots of traveling and bad weather. A lot of rain on the West Coast. It rains a lot. Southland down the bottom here is obviously where Milford Sound is, and the area called Fiordland, which is down about here. Again, absolutely stunning area. Very different scenery to the middle of South Island. Very thick green forests, lots of moss, lots of big sharp mountains. It's what I'd call epic scenery, I guess, and lots of rain. All rainforest. It rains about 300 days of the year down in this area. So if you're going down there, just be aware of that. But is it worth going there? Definitely. It's beautiful. Milford Sound and the entire region is just, yeah, it's stunning. Once again, anywhere in that sort of Milford Sound, Tiana region is beautiful. Take some back roads, park your car, go for some hikes in the forest. Yeah, really beautiful. I won't go into talking about the whole South Island. I'll just say that they are my sort of favourite areas. Having said that, you know, I have sort of shot good photos in all parts of the South Island, but that would be my choice, would be to draw a circle in that middle part there. And if you work around there, you're certainly going to get some good photos. We'll talk about the seasons next, because that seems to be a question that I get asked a lot, is about the seasons. What's the best time of the year to come to New Zealand? Everybody asks me that question. That's the most asked question I get. And the short answer is there's not really one season that's better than the other. It's whatever you like the most. The two most popular seasons for photography are autumn and winter. The most popular in terms of my workshops is autumn. I do 3 workshops in autumn every year, and they always sell out well in advance. Even the workshops for next year, I've only got 4 places, or 3 or 4 places left, I think, out of might be 5 places out of 3 workshops. That's if people can get here. Hopefully. So autumn's probably the most popular, and the reason for that is the colour. There's lots of vibrant colours in the trees, yellow, reds, oranges, as all the trees start to lose their leaves. And it's also just a really nice time of the year in terms of the weather. You get nice, calm weather, lots of fog, nice clouds. So yeah, it's probably the most popular time of the year. And I think the reason for that is because it's quite easy to photograph as well, and it's not too cold. It can still get cold in the mornings, but it's still not winter cold. So autumn is probably the most popular. The second is winter. Winter's definitely my favorite time of the year. I just love winter. Is it cold? I don't think it's cold, but some people do. I don't really feel the cold. It doesn't get as cold as what a lot of people think. New Zealand's not really any colder than Australia, really. You know, if we're shooting a workshop in winter, we will be shooting sunrises below 0 pretty much every day. But as long as you dress accordingly, it's not too bad. And the winter days are still actually really beautiful. You often get some really nice calm weather in the winter. You get those nice blue sky days, and the light in the winter is also really nice and soft. So you can shoot all day long in the winter and get good photos. And the other good thing about winter, you don't have to get up early for sunrise. Sunrises are about 7:30, 8 o'clock. So you can sleep in. And the sunsets are also early. They're about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So you can be at the restaurant having a beer or glass of wine by about 6 o'clock. So winter's really good. Winter's my favorite because I just like the winter scenes. I like the snow. I like the skies that we get in the winter. I like getting shots with ice and snow and things like that in them. Then you go into the spring season, which is now, and spring's actually also really nice. This spring in particular has been, the last few weeks, it's been stunning weather. Warm, everything's just lush and green. We had quite a bit of rain recently, and everything's 2 foot high green grass. All the trees, all the leaves are bright green. And in the last sort of week or 10 days, the lupins flowers and wildflowers as well are everywhere. This year in particular, there's a lot of wildflowers. People don't realise that there's wildflowers in New Zealand, but there's quite a few wildflowers here as well. I'm not a horticulturist, so I can't tell you what they're called, but there's yellow ones, white ones. There's lots of nice flowers. I actually shot some of them on the weekend. I had some clients from the North Island, and we went out and done some wildflower photography. So spring is also a nice time of the year to shoot. And we do get this time of the year, or spring season, we get a lot of wind. So it can be quite windy. Well, it is windy a lot. But one thing the wind does is it generates some really nice cloud formations. And we get a lot of what's called lenticular clouds. They're those clouds that kind of look like flying saucers. We've had a lot of those in the last few weeks. So you get a lot of those in spring as well. And even moving into summer would probably be my last preference to shoot. But in saying that, it's still good. You'll still get good photos in the summertime as well. There's still the lupins flowers go through almost till into January, even into late January, and the wildflowers do as well. And you still also get some really good skies in the summertime. A lot of those cloud formations that I was talking about. So summer is still good. But I guess in order of preference for most people, it would probably be they like autumn first, then they like winter, then spring, then summer. For me personally, I would take winter first, then autumn, then spring, then summer. But in saying that, any time of the year, you will get good photos here. The light in New Zealand, and once again, I'm not a scientist, but there's some scientific thing because of where New Zealand is on the longitude lines of the world. The light here is much softer than it is in Australia because the sun doesn't get as high in the sky. So you get much softer light, which makes for better photography, obviously. The best light is autumn and winter. The best 2 months of the year for light is May, June. I would say that's when the best light is. So that's a wrap. That's on the seasons. Just go back to talking about my style of photography. I tend not to complicate landscape photography. I think some people take it to extremes, and you don't need to do that. Some people just get way too technical. They get hung up on you have to have the best camera and you have to have the best gear, and they just take it too far. For me, I really do try and keep photography simple. The majority of my photos are single photos. I'm not saying I don't blend photos together where I shoot different focal lengths or different exposures, because sometimes I do, but I don't very often. Sometimes a scene almost forces you to do that, but not very often. The majority of my photos are single shot images. Most of my photos, probably 95% of my photos, are taken with NiSi filters. And once again, I don't get too complicated with the filters. I have quite a few filters. I have, quite a big selection of filters, but I don't use a lot of them. I really only use probably 4 filters mainly. And I'll talk about that in a minute. The main thing with getting a good photo to me is to keep it simple. But the 2 things that you really need to get a good understanding of is composition and light. If you can work out how to make a good composition and understand light, you'll get good photos. And you'll get good photos on your iPhone if you know composition and light well. They are the 2 most important things to focus on for sure. In terms of compositions, I could talk about that for hours, but really keep it simple. Don't put too much real estate in your image. Keep the subjects simple. When you arrive at a big scene and see a big grand vista, immediately a lot of people think they have to get that whole scene in their photo. For me, the first thing I think of is I just want to take one little piece out of that scene and photograph that. And if you think about it that way, which part of that big scene you like the best, and just shoot that and keep it really simple. And if you can understand light, go out and really try to get an understanding of light, because light makes a photo. There's 2 things in a photo that is controlled by light, and it's called shadows and highlights. And if you can understand what shadows and highlights do to a photo, is give it all sorts of things, but it gives it scale, it gives it depth, it gives it it's everything in a photograph. So light is definitely very important. The best way to understand light, if you don't feel like you get it, is to just keep going back to the same location often. even if it's your local beach or somewhere local, just keep going back to the same location. And after a while, you'll start to understand how the light works in that place and how the shadows fall in different ways and so forth. And you'll start to understand the way light works and how light can make your photos a lot better. I tend not to shoot pointing my camera straight at the sun. I say that as I just showed you a photo of the Wanaka tree with a sun star in it. But most of the time I don't point my camera at the sun. Sometimes I do, but not often. I like the light to come from the side if possible. It doesn't have to come directly from the side, as in 90 degrees from the side, but come into the frame somewhere side on. And quite often having the sun just out of the frame, moving your camera on the tripod till the sun is just out of the frame. So it's throwing a real nice light source into your scene. Also tends to work really good. So I guess my style, what do I call my style? I call it authentic. That's a word I like to use. I try to make my photos look quite close to the way I saw it on the day. Now, photography is a form of art and everyone's got their own interpretation of how they like to do their photos. And once you start getting into editing, you open up another can of worms. And some people take editing a long way with the creative side and their images look totally different to the way they actually were on the day. That's fine. That's up to the individual. I try to keep mine as authentic as possible. They don't look exactly the same as the way I shot them. I still use Photoshop and do editing, but I try and keep them authentic so that they look pretty close to the real thing. So I guess that's my style, and that's definitely the way I'm really trying to take my photography even further now. Particularly this year, I'm trying to keep my images even more authentic and probably less saturation in the colors and really looking quite natural and quite close to the scene. As far as changing photos, like manipulating, like putting different skies in your photos and things like that, I've done it before, but I don't intend to do it in the future. I've played around with it just for fun, but it's not something that I do. I don't really do astrophotography like at night time. That's not really my thing. I'm mainly just a sunrise, sunset, pretty authentic landscape photographer. Another thing that I do dabble in is wildlife photography. I do really like shooting wildlife, and that's one of the reasons why I'm actually starting to do wildlife photography workshop to Africa as well. Okay, so that's it about my photography. I'll talk about photography workshops, what I do. I do workshops to, obviously, lots to New Zealand. There's about 16, I think, I'm guessing, about 16 workshops a year scheduled for New Zealand. There's 3 in autumn, 3 in winter, 1 in spring, 1 in the Lupins, or 2 in spring, 1 Lupins and 1 spring workshop. There's also a seascapes workshop, which is just coastal only, so shooting just seascapes, which is in June. And as we move forward into the future and post-COVID-19 and when the world comes back to some sort of normality, I might be adding in some more New Zealand stuff as well. I also do a bit of private work here in New Zealand as well. So I do private workshops for, 1 person, 2 people, a group of friends, photography clubs, all kinds of stuff like that. So I normally leave a few open weeks throughout the year in my calendar so I can cater for those private jobs as well. Other workshops I do is I do 2 workshops a year to Tasmania, 1 in April and 1 in November, so autumn and spring. So they've been really popular over the last few years. Canada is another one that I've been doing for a few years now, which is done in September, which is fall in Canada or autumn in the Rocky Mountains. And that workshop's based just in the Rocky Mountains alone, around Canmore and Banff and Jasper and around that part of the world. And that's in September. Hopefully that'll happen 2021. I did have another workshop that was scheduled for this year. That was going to be a new one that was actually sold out. That was going to be in the USA to the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone National Parks in Wyoming. But that workshop's now been cancelled like the rest of them. So that's something I'll still look at in the future. Probably not for a couple of years, I'd say, at this stage. Canada's something I'd like to think we can still do, hopefully in 2021. And the last one that was a new one that was on the schedule for this year, that was also sold out, was to be in August, was a wildlife safari to Africa, to South Africa. And then we couldn't do that this year either, but we've got that on the books for next year as well. And that's almost sold out too, I think, for next year. So hopefully that'll happen as well. So that's my workshops. There's not much else I was going to talk about, really. The only other thing was probably talk about, if you don't know who I am or you don't follow any of my stuff, you can look me up. My website, you can look me up on social media, Facebook, Instagram. I have been doing this year in particular, because I've had a lot of time on my hands since COVID. I've been semi-retired this year. I've been doing a lot of YouTube videos, which is all photography related, and it's all here in New Zealand. So if you like to watch photography videos on YouTube, head over to my YouTube channel, because they're good videos. I think you'd actually enjoy them. They're quite lighthearted and adventurous. I'll open this up. That's my YouTube channel. If you go onto YouTube and just look up Brett Wood or Brett Wood Photo, that's actually my YouTube channel address there, youtube.com/C Brett Wood Photo. And you'll see there some of the videos that I do. They're all landscape photography related. So yeah, go and check those out. My website's probably worth having a look at, particularly if you want to have a look at some photo galleries. You can go, that's my website, brettwoodphotos.com. You can go on there to the image gallery and have a look at all my images. There's lots of other stuff on there to have a look at. And you can look me up on Facebook or Instagram. But I guess the one that I'm probably starting to use a lot more now is YouTube. I quite enjoy doing YouTube videos, and I do plan to do more of that stuff in the future. That's all I got written on my notepad here, and I've probably talked for too long already. So I'll hand it back to you, Andrew.
That was great. Thank you so much, Brett. There's quite a few questions that have come through, so I'll go through a few of those. But if anyone also wants to take themselves off mute and actually ask Brett a question, I will
just pull you up. There is one thing that I didn't talk about that the guys might be interested in. I was just going to talk about which filters I mainly use.
Yep, go for it.
So I'll do that. There's a lot of different filters available. I've got a lot of different filters, but there's really 4 filters that I use the most. I use this filter holder system here, which is the NiSi V6 filter holder system. So I use that system, and the 4 main filters I use 2. This filter on the left-hand side here is the 3-stop medium graduated filter. And I use 2 different ones of those. I use a 3-stop medium graduated filter, and I use a 4-stop. Those 2 filters I use almost every time. And which one I use depends on how bright the sky is, really. If the sky is really bright, I'd use the 4-stop medium graduated filter. if it wasn't so bright, I'd use the 3-stop. And the other 2 filters I use a lot is this one, which is the 6-stop ND filter, and also its brother filter, which is the 10-stop. So those 4 filters are the main 4 filters that I would use. I do have other filters as well that I use occasionally, but they would be probably the 4 main ones that I use. Yep, that's about it there. That's about it. So yeah, if you've got any questions, fire away.
Yeah, if you've got a question, just take yourself off mute first, just so we can hear you, and ask away.
I can't hear anyone.
I might get it kicked off first then, Brett. Brett, you obviously showed a map of the areas that are your favourite to photograph. And if someone was coming to New Zealand, where's a good place to base themselves so they can get to see kind of the most? Because you've obviously got to sleep somewhere, stay somewhere. Where would you suggest to base yourself?
Yeah, I'd say probably Wanaka, where I am now. Wanaka or Queenstown, mainly because they're quite decent sized cities. They've got all the restaurants and, you know, all the things you want to have. And if your partner doesn't want to come out taking photos, that there's other things that they can do, go shopping or drinking beer or wine or whatever they want to do. And probably the other area would be a place called Twizel, which is in Mackenzie country, which is a couple hours north of here. So they'd probably be the 3 places. I'd probably say Wanaka number 1, number 2 Queenstown, and number 3 probably Twizel.
Okay.
If it was just photography only and you didn't care about anything else, probably Twizel. But if you wanted a mix of everything, probably maybe Wanaka.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I've stayed at Twizel and based myself out of there. It's great.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Hi, Brett. My name's Julie. I have a question about the medium grad filters.
Yep.
Particularly with the Tasman Lake. How do you position the filter you used for the sky when you've got mountains as well?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. What I do with a graduated filter, and one thing I certainly notice when I get people on photography workshops is they always push the graduated filter down too far, way too far often. So what I would tend to do is I shoot off a tripod. So I'm shooting off the back screen on the camera. So I use Canon cameras. So I would turn the exposure down on the back screen so the screen's getting a bit dark. And then that will really sort of accentuate the bright parts in the sky, make them bright and the rest of the scene dark, and then just slowly start to push the filter down until it just covers the bright parts. And
so you wouldn't necessarily put it at an angle?
Yeah, I might put it at an angle too. So you can tilt the filter holder is on a swivel. Just hang on a sec. Oh no, I haven't got one set up. The filter holder's on a swivel, so you can sort of tilt it.
Yes, it does. Yes.
Tilt it left to right. So if it was much brighter on, say, for example, on the right-hand side of the scene, you might tilt it a bit to the right. So it's a bit darker on the right than it is on the left.
Okay, good tips there. Thank you.
Yeah. Another plug for me again, but it's good for you. I've actually got a couple of YouTube videos on NiSi filters on how to use them. So one of them's been a really popular video. I think it's had about 70 or 80,000 views. So if you go on to YouTube, it's not a sales video. It's just showing you how to use the system. So that's probably worth checking out.
Thank you. I'll look at that because I do have it, all those ones you mentioned. Thank you.
Yep.
We also do make a holder called the switch holder, which actually allows you to have 2 grad filters at different angles and different positions. And actually in New Zealand, shooting mountains, you can sometimes get light from both sides of the mountain. So it's a really handy holder to use when you're shooting in New Zealand.
Yep. I do have the switch holder, and I have used it a few times. It's really when you really need to control the light, like with quite a lot of finesse, that switch filter holder works really good.
Brett, it's Joanna here. Would you consider, if you're just coming to New Zealand for landscape photography, not general sightseeing, is an RV a good way to get around, or do you need a high clearance vehicle?
RV, those motorhomes, they're
more a camper van, I guess.
Yeah, I've used them a lot. They're really uncomfortable. They're really cold. No, I don't think so. No, I'd say just get a small rental car and stay in hotels.
Yeah, okay.
Because you can get rental cars. There's a company called Go Rentals. If you look them up, you'll get a really nice rental car for $25 a day, cheap.
Yeah, okay.
And those RVs are about 200 odd bucks a day, so they're quite expensive. And the thing about them is they're quite limited where you can take them, whereas a car will sort of go more places and also use a lot less petrol and so forth. And most of the time, accommodation's fairly easy to get and not overly expensive. So depends what you want to do. I'd probably suggest a rental car and hotels over an RV, but I guess the RV, if you wanted to camp out in right on the edge of the lake and wake up there, then it's probably better for that sort of thing. So,
okay, great.
There are some restrictions about where you can camp, isn't there, Brett?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
There's restrictions on where you can camp, and if you go to the DOC website, DOC, which is Department of Conservation, just look that up. You'll be able to find out all the camping info. Yeah.
Great. Second question: if you're like you and you're not working because of COVID, and you had unlimited time, how long would you recommend if you wanted to explore the South Island? Like, if you had more than 2 weeks up your sleeve,
a year?
How long would you? Yeah. Okay. All right.
The longer the better. The longer the better. The more time you can. I think that's one thing that I see a lot with people coming here as a tourist when they've never been before. They almost always think 2 weeks they're gonna see everything, or 3 weeks, and there's no way. So the more time, the better. And if you have got less time, like you've only got a week, then I'd suggest just staying in one place for the whole week and just covering that one area, doing that well rather than trying to do a big loop. Because another thing people don't realise about New Zealand, they look at it on the map and they say, oh, it's not very big, we can drive around that in a week. You can't. There's no way. It's actually a lot bigger than you think. And the one thing that people probably don't take into consideration is in Australia, when you look at a map, you look at 100 kilometres as 1 hour. You think it's 100 Ks, I can do that in an hour. Here, that's 2 hours because the roads are tighter and windier, and you'll be stopping for photos. And if you can do 400 kilometres in a day here, you're driving all day.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Brett, there were quite a few questions and comments about polarizers.
Yep.
Can you just confirm when you use a polarizer, when you don't?
Yeah, that's quite a tricky one because that really comes down to the individual person. I use a circular polarizer a lot. Probably 80% of my photos I'd be using a circular polarizer. I like the NiSi landscape polarizer. I like what it does. It takes a lot of glare away, so bright white sort of sun glare. It gets rid of that. But it also kind of enhances colours like yellow, blue, green. So it kind of almost saturates and deepens those colours a bit and gives a bit more contrast. So I like that effect. I guess with a polarizer, if you're pointing your camera sort of anywhere within, I think, I don't know, degrees, within, this area towards the sun, it won't really work. It really works when the sun is somewhere behind you on probably 180 degrees. It works better. And I'm a little bit, particularly more so recently, I'm a little bit iffy about using a circular polarizer at quite wide angles when you're shooting at quite wide angles, because it does get this sort of blob in the top of the shot. A lot of people may not even notice it, but I'm very particular about things, and I do. But that happens on any polarizer. It's not a product fault. It's just the effect of a wide angle lens, the geometry of a wide angle lens. But I use it a lot. Pretty much every shot I take, I shoot a lot of landscapes with a zoom lens, the 100 to 400, and I almost never take it off that camera, off that lens, almost every shot. And then the mid-range lens I use is a 24 to 70, and it's almost on that lens all the time as well. The only time I take it on and off would be on wide angle. And the only other time I do take it off is when I want a good reflection in the water. Because if you've got a nice flat lake with a nice reflection, sometimes you actually want the reflection in your shot, like you want that bright reflection, whereas a polarizer can actually take a lot of reflection away. So it's really a personal thing. And what I'd suggest people do is just put the polarizer on and just spin the wheel and just look through your eyepiece or look at your back live view screen and just spin it till you like the look of it. Whatever you like the best, really. It's a personal thing.
Any other questions?
Most people are probably going to sleep.
It's Joanna
No,
again.
it's still there.
I'm a long time stalker or lurker of yours on Instagram.
Okay.
Love your photos. They're absolutely stunning. What's your go-to editing program? Are you mostly Photoshop?
Yeah. No, well, I've actually simplified my editing a lot lately. I used to get really technical, way beyond most people. Lately, I've sort of refined it quite a bit. I always start off in Adobe Camera Raw. I'm not actually a Lightroom user. I don't like Lightroom. I start out in Adobe Camera Raw and just do basic stuff there, and then I go to Photoshop. And in Photoshop, 90% of my editing in Photoshop is done with what's called luminosity masks.
Okay.
I use a thing called the TK Actions panel. So a lot of it's done with that. But since the last upgrade to Lightroom and Camera Raw, the power of that has become a lot better, and I'm using Camera Raw a lot more now than I was before. You can do almost everything, and Lightroom's the same. You can do almost everything in there now.
Okay, thank you.
Who do I know you, Joanna? I can't see your face.
No, I don't have a camera thing on my laptop.
Oh,
so,
okay.
No, I haven't been on a workshop with you or anything before. No, we haven't met.
Okay, cool.
Hopefully in the future.
Okay.
Brett, someone asked about Lake Tasman and whether the icebergs are in there all year round, or is it just winter or certain times of the year?
No, they're not. I've been there one morning for a workshop and the lake's been full of icebergs, and gone back there a week later for the next workshop and there's no icebergs. So it depends on two things. One is the wind, because often if the wind blows down the lake, it blows the icebergs down the lake, down to our end where we shoot. If the wind's blowing the other way, it blows them back towards the glacier. But in saying that, most of the winds here come from either the north, northeast or northwest. If you get a southerly wind, which would blow them back, then that's always bad weather anyway. But the other thing is when the glacier calves, so when it actually, a big piece breaks off the glacier, and then it comes off, you know, a lot of ice comes off. And when that happens, you'll have a lot of icebergs in the lake for probably about a week after it. But that's just intermittent. Like the glacier might calve 3 times in a week, or it may not calve for a month. It's just pretty much unpredictable. And time of year doesn't really make that much difference. You can still get them in summertime as well, probably less in summer because it's hotter and the ice melts quite fast. So in the cooler months, you probably do get them more. But yeah, I'd say just turn up and hope for the best. I think there is, I think if you look online, I haven't actually looked at it, but someone was telling me there is a webcam somewhere online where you can see, I'm not sure if it's Tasman Lake or Hooker Lake, but where you can actually see the lake and you can tell if there's icebergs there or not.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know last year on a trip, I went up there 4 times and I only could actually see the mountains like once out of 4 because of the weather. So it's definitely one I think that's worth it. You just have to keep persisting and keep going back.
It's definitely worth it. Yeah. Definitely worth it.
Brett, there's another question. Someone said, what advice or tips would you have for someone that's a hobby photographer that gets frustrated with failed attempts to capture an ideal shot?
Yeah, that happens a lot. That happens to me too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people put too much expectation on themselves to get a good shot. And sometimes it just doesn't happen. You go out and shoot and you just don't get anything. Just keep trying, keep turning up. If you need to learn more, get on YouTube. It doesn't matter what you do. If you take photos or play golf or play guitar or whatever you do, the more you practice and the more you research and learn, the better you'll get at it.
Yeah, it's just repetition, I find as well. Just even going back to the same places you mentioned before and just practicing that location until you can find everything there is to shoot there is handy as well.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like that image I showed in my images from Tasman Lake, that's probably the best shot I've got from Tasman Lake. And to get that shot, I've probably been there 30 times. So, yeah, you just keep on going back.
Yeah. So, Brett, one question I've got is when are we going to get back to New Zealand? When do you think we're going to be allowed to go and photograph there again?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Soon, I hope. But I don't know. I really don't know.
Fingers crossed soon.
Yeah.
I know there's lots of Australians that are definitely keen to get back to New Zealand.
I need those people here. Yeah.
One other question I did see was just about your workshops and how much are they and how long do your workshops go for?
The New Zealand ones or?
Yeah, New Zealand ones.
Yeah. Well, they vary in price depending on which one they are. But if you have a look on my website, you'll get all that information. They're normally about $4,500 for a week or 6 days. And most of the sort of autumn, winter, spring ones are all 6 days. The Lupins one is 5 days, so it's a little bit cheaper. And then the Seascapes one's actually longer. It's can't remember now, 6 or 7 days. So it costs a little bit more, but it's longer. So, yeah.
But it might seem expensive, but that does include obviously Brett's expertise, food, travel once you join up with the group as well. So it's actually a really good value.
Yeah, it includes everything. Once you actually join the tour or the workshop, you don't need to pay for anything. It's all covered, all your accommodation, all your meals, everything's taken care of. There is one thing that I thought I'd mention. It's actually a requirement in New Zealand to do photography workshops if you're visiting national parks, or here they call it DOCs, Department of Conservation, if you're visiting those areas, you need to have a particular permit by the Department of Conservation. And those permits cost me about $7,000, so they're not cheap. So if you are going to join a photography workshop in New Zealand, whether it's with me or somebody else, make sure they've got that permit, because if they haven't, they can be in a lot of trouble. And I do have permits, so I do have permits to access any of those Department of Conservation areas in the South Island. I have authority or access to any of those places. Yep.
Cool. Anyone got any last questions? We're going to wrap it up in the next few minutes. So if anyone else has got anything, please jump in.
No one?
All right, Brett, I've got one more last question. Favorite restaurant in the South Island to eat a good meal?
I knew you'd ask me that. Well, you almost know the answer to this. There's a Japanese restaurant in Queenstown called Tanoshi. It's really good. We've been there a few times. It's really good. There's lots of good places to eat and drink around here.
There is, and good coffee, good everything in New Zealand. So
yeah, Kiwis do hospitality very well. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brett. Thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. And
thanks, everyone.
If you did want to watch this again or send it to a friend, it will be available on the NiSi Facebook page, the NiSi Australia YouTube channel as well. And I'll send out a link so you can access that probably tomorrow morning. And I'll send that coupon code out as well. But thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate taking your night out just to say hello and asking a few questions and listening to Brett. Thank you.
No worries.
Cool.
Thanks, Brett.
No worries.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Thanks.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
I'll see you at the end of May, Brett.
Hey, Al. How you going? Nice background there, mate.
Oh, yeah, I've been there recently. In May
I might
last
be
year.
there next week.
Thanks, Brad.
That's good.
No worries. Hey, TC, how you going, mate?
How you go, buddy? Yeah.
See you, Brett. Good night.
You get... Oh, he's gone.
Thanks, Andrew.
You'll get hay fever in that
Thank you.
paddock there,
Good night.
TC. There's Lisa. Yep, they're all gone. Cool.
Well, thank you very much, Brett. I'll end the meeting and thanks for sharing tonight.
No worries.
Thanks, mate.